we're gonna do a barbecued pork butt. We have a little wood fire going out in our backyard with some oak, a little bit of charcoal to keep it going. And I have this beautiful piece of pork. The pork butt is really the shoulder. It's not from the butt, that's the ham. It's from the shoulder, and it has a little shoulder blade bone in there. And I did rub this down 24 hours ago. We let this marinate overnight with our dry rub. And this has that smoked Spanish paprika, a little brown sugar, lots of black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. There's some cayenne for a little kick. We like it spicy. And then we have a little apple cider vinegar powder in there. And now to set it up to hit my grill, I'm gonna put it in a little pan with the fat side up. And I'm gonna use a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the bottom of the pan. I wanna have a little moisture. So I'm gonna take some nice cider vinegar and a little bit of water under there. And then we're gonna baste this with the cider vinegar as it cooks. And I'll show you how we put this on an indirect heat. I have my 3.5 pound pork shoulder roast here. That's a pork butt. It's got a decent amount of fat on it, and there's a little bone running through there. And I'm gonna make a dry rub. We're gonna rub this, let it sit overnight, and then we'll take it to our grill. So for the rub, I have some brown sugar. We wanna have a little bit of sweetness in there. We have cayenne pepper, because I like a little bit of heat. A lot of the flavor is gonna come from this smoked Spanish paprika. Just a little bit of garlic powder and onion powder. I'm gonna add a little tablespoon of salt and then some freshly ground black pepper. And then I have one secret ingredient that you probably don't have in your pantry, and this is apple cider vinegar powder. That really gives it like a nice acidic, bright pop of flavor. You can get that online if you want to check that out, but it's a great little thing to have on hand. So I'm gonna just rub this all together, and then I'm gonna fully coat my pork roast with this. Kind of work out any little clumps you might have from your onion powder, garlic powder, any of those dried spices. And then we're gonna coat this right over our pork. Just make sure you get it coated on all sides. Very liberally coated. That sweet sugar and that smoky paprika, a little bit of that apple cider vinegar smell coming off of it. It's gonna be really nice. So I'm gonna get it all nicely rubbed. We'll wrap this up tightly in plastic wrap and let it sit overnight. So I'm bringing our pork shoulder out here, pork butt. It's about 3.5 pounds. There's that shoulder blade bone in there. We're gonna cook this over an indirect heat with a little oak fire going, pushed off to one side. And we're gonna cook that for a few hours until that shoulder bone really wiggles and is about to come out. It's over a little bit of water and apple cider vinegar, and we're gonna baste with some vinegar. So I'm gonna work on a quick barbecue sauce, and I want it to have a little bit of spice, a little bit of sweetness, and a little bit of acidity. So I'm gonna use some cider vinegar, a little bit of brown sugar, some Louisiana hot sauce, of course some ketchup. I'm gonna start with some onions sweated down in some butter, seasoned with black pepper and smoked Spanish paprika. For my barbecue sauce, I'm gonna start with a good amount of butter. And I'm doing this in a little stainless steel pan because I'm gonna use a lot of vinegar in here, and that reacts poorly with aluminum pans. So I'm gonna melt this down. So add one onion to our butter, and we'll kind of sweat this down a little bit. Those onions are starting to become translucent. We're going to add a little pinch of salt to that and a healthy dose of black pepper. Next, we'll go and give it a healthy portion of apple cider vinegar. A few shots of that good Louisiana hot sauce. I add in about a tablespoon of smoked Spanish paprika, and then a little bit of brown sugar. I don't want it to be too sweet, so maybe a generous tablespoon of brown sugar. Then the final ingredient going in here is my favorite Heinz ketchup. So I'll bring this up to a simmer. I'm gonna thin it down with just a little bit of water, and we're gonna let that cook for a bit. And then we're gonna brighten it up with just a little fresh lemon juice. To go with our barbecued pork shoulder, I'm gonna make a crisp coleslaw. That's gonna go really nicely with our vinegary barbecue sauce that we're making. We're gonna pull that pork. The pork's really rich and fatty, so it needs a little vinegar to stand up to that richness. And we're gonna make a nice fresh coleslaw as well. I'm gonna start my coleslaw with a nice head of cabbage that I just rinsed up and dried. And then I'm gonna shred this up with a knife. Take that first slice off, and after that, I can just continue to slice right through. I'm going to mix up a dressing for my coleslaw. I shredded up some carrots, I have some red onion and some white cabbage. And I'm going to start with some mayonnaise. To the mayonnaise, I'm going to add some cider vinegar, a little bit of white sugar. Want a little bit of sweetness in there. We're going to salt this up and give it a few twists of pepper. Then my favorite thing in a coleslaw is a little bit of celery seed. So it just gives it that little celery flavor. So we'll whisk this all up. I have my dressing all set. A lot of celery seed in there, a little sugar with my apple cider vinegar. And then I've got some gloves on, and I'm just gonna work all my vegetables through there. Make a nice colorful slaw. We'll make this ahead of time, let it kind of set up and rest with the delicious dressing for about an hour while our pork finishes. Our pork shoulder's been on the grill for about 3 hours now. We're gonna go check it in just a minute. My pork shoulder in off the grill. It's been out there for about 3.5 hours. It's starting to come together really nicely. I'm gonna brush it a little bit more with my apple cider vinegar, and then I'm gonna wrap it in foil here. I'm gonna drizzle the foil with a little vinegar, and then we're gonna put a little bit of the sauce on there. Kind of brush it with sauce. And we're gonna wrap this up, and then we're gonna put it in a low oven for just about 2 more hours until the bones start to wiggle free, and then we'll be ready. Just gonna coat this up with sauce. Lay it in here, fat side up. And before I do that, I'm gonna take a taste of my drippings. They've been in there catching that smoke. Really a nice smoky flavor. So that's like a natural liquid smoke right there. Add a little bit of that to my sauce. Stir that into that vinegary sauce. Brush a little bit over our pork. It's got a nice black bark on there, and then we'll wrap it up tight. Put this pork fat side up into a 300-degree oven. We'll let that sit for about 2 hours till we're ready. Unwrap our pork here, see how we're looking. Ooh. Our bones are about to come right out. That looks pretty good, nice and juicy. So I'm gonna let that rest here, just loosely wrapped for about 30-45 minutes, and then we'll pull our pork. My pork is rested here. It's time to pull the bone out. Let's see what we've got. Comes out nice and clean. It's been resting for a good hour. It's still quite warm. But now it's time to pull the pork. Really moist. Just Still hot, but I can handle it. It's got a little bit of that delicious bark from being on the grill. So this has been on over the live fire for about 3 hours, and then wrapped up in a low oven for another 3 hours. Oh, it's very moist and delicious. And then I have my sauce here that I just warmed up, and I'm gonna dress it with a little bit of my barbecue sauce. We used some of the juices that we captured from the grill, so it has a little bit of that smokiness. Lots of that delicious apple cider vinegar. Looks really nice. So I'm gonna make a nice little barbecue pork sandwich here. I have a nice brioche bun, some of my pulled slow smoked shoulder. We give it just a little dab of the sauce, and then some creamy coleslaw over the top of that. And then a couple of these pickles. Looks real nice. Let's see how that is. Just slow roasted on the barbecue. I'm sure it's all over my face, but that's real Lamborghini.